Hey y'all, Austin here with Outer World Media. Welcome back to another book review, guys. This is one I'm super excited to talk about, as I am most book reviews that I do. This is Ghost of Honolulu. A little backstory on this one. I kind of discussed it on here before, guys. I picked this book up right before my daughter was born, put it back down, didn't pick it up for a little bit, and just recently picked it up, and I started over. I was like 90 something pages into this. This is about a 255-ish page book, but started over. Wanted to just kind of engross myself in this story, if you will, and I will say that I think that was the best thing I possibly could have done. I don't know if I was just in a rush my first initial time trying to read this story, but I picked up way more stuff reading the first 90 something pages again than I did on my initial read. But yeah, I just want to kind of throw that out there. But what is Ghost of Honolulu about? So this is essentially there's quite a few key characters in this. This is a nonfiction book. This is a story, or an untold story, about the attack on Pearl Harbor. So kind of setting this up, and I read it both in physical format as well as on my Kindle. Kind of setting the stage of what is this story about. So we are introduced to a couple, like I said, different characters in the start of the story, setting it up of the book. So we're introduced to Douglas Wada, and I'm probably butchering the last name. So he is I want to say character. He is somebody who was born in Hawaii. His family has Japanese heritage. Sorry guys, it's late at night when I'm recording this. But we kind of follow him, just the highlights of his young life and how he ends up working for the government and what would become NCIS, but starts off as, if I'm not mistaken, NIS. And so they kind of have him starting off as a translator, just, the world is leading up to World War II, and so they are having him translate messages, radio signals, stuff like that they come across. But on the flip side, we're also introduced to a character who is coming from the Japanese Imperial Army, or military, if you will, and it is about how their lives have led up to the attack on Pearl Harbor and how it affected both of them. But it's not just about them. We're also introduced to other key characters in this story. I don't really want to spoil anything, but what I will say is it's World War II. There's not just the Americans and the Japanese involved in this. There are also the Germans who are involved in this, and that gets talked about in this. Again, it's just amazing, crazy, and when I say amazing, that I think that's the wrong term. What I mean is, it's amazing that this story was untold. I feel like this is pivotal information to the attack on Pearl Harbor. And if this information was not known before this book came out, I don't know how. I really don't, because we are, again, introduced to people who are setting up the attack on Pearl Harbor. We're introduced to, and I don't know a whole lot. I'm not gonna lie, guys. I don't know a whole lot about World War II. I need to know more. I am a American male. Obviously, I think for the most part, most of us are intrigued by World War II, just war in general and history and all that. And I'll be the first to admit I need to know more about this. Like, there's a section in here where it talks about how the Japanese sent submarines to Pearl Harbor to attack us from under the water as well. And we're introduced to one of those people who were on a submarine. There's pictures in here. Again, so when I say amazing, that's what I mean. Is just the fact that there's so much more that happened that I didn't know about. That, Pearl Harbor, think of just the planes coming in, blowing up the ships and whatnot, just causing a catastrophe situation, not only for America, but for the people that were involved, all those brave men and women who died, during the attack on Pearl Harbor. Again, this is definitely a story. If you are a huge history buff, if you're somebody who is intrigued by Pearl Harbor, or you think you know everything about the attack on Pearl Harbor, I would recommend reading this. You may know this information. Again, like I said, there's stuff in here I didn't know, and again, I'm just a I want to say casual history buff. I'm definitely trying to get into that more and read more history books. But again, just the depth that Mark Harmon and Leon Carroll Jr. go into. Again, it's a 250 something page book. This book does fly by pretty quickly. I think there's maybe a total of 12 chapters in here, but it's kind of split up. And we get different points of view from different people that were involved in this, and just the setup and the aftermath, and the, like I said, the first part setting up for the attack on Pearl Harbor. Second part is the attack on Pearl Harbor. And the last part is the aftermath. It delves into, people going over to leaving Japan that were part of the attack that helped set it up and whatnot. And we follow a gentleman who was a key component of that, and what happened to him and how he was trying to evade getting found and whatnot. And we see Douglas and other NIS agents trying to find him, as well as be part of, a huge legal case for multiple countries against Japan and whatnot, and other countries. Again, there's just a whole lot of information packed into a 250 something page book. So I definitely would say, if you are somebody who is wanting to get into history books and you're not sure where to start, but you're wanting to learn stuff about World War II, again, I would highly, highly recommend this book. Again, very, very, very informative in my opinion. I ended up actually on my Kindle highlighting a bunch of stuff. And again, it's hard to talk about this book without giving stuff away. Yes, it's history. We all should definitely know this. But again, I don't want to spoil anything, because there's stuff that caught me off guard and that surprised me in this. And I want that to, you to experience that as well. So I can definitely say that Ghost of Honolulu is a book I am highly, highly going to recommend. For, again, someone who's trying to start to read more history books, this was definitely a great place to start. This has me wanting to read more history books and whatnot, more nonfiction. But again, guys, Ghost of Honolulu, kind of get that up there for the thumbnail. I would highly, highly recommend picking this up. If you're somebody like Dustin, I think you really would enjoy this. Kevin, I think you would enjoy this. Hyde and Reed, I really think you would enjoy this. Faceless would probably really enjoy this. Jay over there would enjoy this. Again, Graz, I think he would enjoy this. I think pretty much everybody that I've become friends with on here, I think y'all would enjoy this. But again, guys, Ghost of Honolulu, I would definitely, I kind of been debating on this. I finished this a couple days ago, wanted to kind of just sit on it, marinate on it, what I was going to give it as far as a ranking. And I typically don't like to rank books, but I feel like this was just that good of a book. I would have to give this like 4.5 stars in all honesty. Again, very, very informative, not only about key people for, this case and what surrounding Pearl Harbor and all that, but also their family members and just how it affected them and just everybody. It also talks a little bit about, and I did forget to mention this, and I do apologize. So in this, they talk about how America was wanting, or there are certain people in the U.S. who were wanting to set up camps for Japanese. And, that's not something that, Americans like to talk about, is that. And they I don't want to say they gloss over, but they definitely talk about it in this. And so, again, they definitely don't shy away from not only the atrocity that was Pearl Harbor, but also how that affected, America, and how that made Americans feel. And just the fact that, in a time of war, especially something like that, they nobody trusted anybody. And even if you were somebody who was, here in America, you were born in America, but you're of Japanese descent, that didn't matter. They didn't trust you. A lot of people didn't want people to go to those camps. And so, again, it does talk about that in this. So, again, nothing graphic or anything like that. I will say that they don't really describe anything graphic, but they don't shy away from something that I don't think is really talked about a whole lot in American history, especially World War II history. When they talk about camps and whatnot, it's specifically the Germans and whatnot over there. But they do again talk a little bit about the American camps that were brought up and whatnot. And yeah, again, if you want to know more about that and what I'm talking about, pick this book up. I think you really will enjoy it and find it very, very informative. Again, I'm just a guy who's just now starting to get into history, so I'm not really sure how to review these and talk about these a whole lot. And again, my terms may be completely off, and again, I may sound like I don't know what I'm talking about with this information, because again, I'm just a guy with a camera. But again, I did very, very much enjoy Ghost of Honolulu. Again, pick it up if you get the chance.